We got some fun AFC home games to talk about this week. We got a not fun game to start off week 6 Thursday night. About half the Giants are showing up in Foxborough to face the Patriots, but it's all going to get better after that. Welcome to the Thursday edition of FFT. I am Adam Azer with Dave Richard, Heath Cummings, Jamie Eisenberg. Good morning to you guys. It's good to see you. How are you?
It's good to see you too. Are we allowed to talk about you not hitting record on the 15 minutes of podcast that we just got done doing?
I think it's about 5 minutes.
It probably was more than 5, Adam.
Sorry, the podcast is coming out late today.
You know, we got off to a great rollicking start. We had a really good talk about the Thursday game. Adam gave us a huge confession that I can't believe he said on air. And then he says, we have to stop the podcast. I forgot to hit record.
Yeah.
This is your job, is to hit record.
Hitting record is part of my job description. It is the first part of my job description, and I screwed it up. So we had all this great banter to start the show. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to go right into the content here, although I'm going to tell you at some point about a good Russell Wilson stat, a good Andy Dalton stat, a great Pittsburgh Steelers stat that I'm sure you already saw on Twitter because it was that great. I'm sure it's trending. But first, schedule alert. So, yeah, it is a starter sit episode, but we're also going to talk a little bit of trade value here. Odell Beckham. Let's look at Odell Beckham's schedule. His next 5 games. The Seahawks are this week at home. They allow the 8th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. Then he's got a bye, and then it's the Patriots, the Broncos, the Bills. They're all top 4. It's in the 4, of the 4 best teams against wide receivers. I'm not sure how I feel about the Seahawks. But it looks like a terrible 5-week stretch for Beckham. Seahawks, bye, Patriots, Broncos, Bills. Dave, what does that mean for Beckham's trade value right now?
It means that he is not a top 12 receiver on the trade chart as of this moment. And I don't know if he'll bounce back into the top 10 even with a good game against Seattle because of all those landmines in his way coming up over the next couple of weeks.
So, Jamie, Heath, your thoughts on Beckham? Is he still a good buy low, or is it just going to be tough sledding for him?
It's probably going to be tough sledding, but if you can factor it into what you're trying to sway the other owner to trade him to you, I mean, look, if Beckham is Beckham and Mayfield is going to challenge these defenses, he may stink, but Beckham should still have the chance to put up some good games along the way. It may not be 100 and a touchdown in each of those matchups. But if he gets you 50 in a score, or he scores, goes over 100 yards. I mean, like you said, we haven't seen the Patriots defense fully tested. Denver, Chris Harris against Beckham. I think Beckham has a chance to win that matchup. And, who knows if there's any injuries along the way between now and then. So you're not going to probably, if you're selling Beckham, get the value of what he was drafted at. But at the same time, you may be able to get him a little bit cheaper if you say, look, do you really want to play Beckham against those teams if the owner is looking to sell?
Okay, let's talk about Kenny Golladay. Kenny Galladay's got 11 games left, not including Week 17. 6 of those 11 games are against the Bears, the Vikings, the Broncos in Week 16, and the Cowboys. Those teams have good cornerbacks. They've been good against wide receivers. They appear to be bad matchups for Kenny Golladay. Minnesota, Chicago, Dallas, Chicago, Minnesota, Denver. Those are 6 of his next 11 games. He also has the Giants. He has the Raiders. He has the Redskins. That's really good. He has the Bucs in Week 15. Green Bay this week. Not sure. I mean, they didn't look great against receivers last week, that's for sure. But, Heath, what do you think about Kenny Golladay? Would you try to see what you can get for him right now, or just ride it out?
This is the kind of situation where he's got 6 bad matchups. He's got 4 or 5 great matchups. I'm going to mostly just look at it as a neutral schedule situation and not really factor it in my evaluation of Kenny Galladay's value moving forward.
All right. And then Philadelphia. An awful schedule coming up. At Minnesota this week, at Dallas, at Buffalo, the Bears, a bye, the Patriots, the Seahawks. And then it gets really good. But, we've talked about it a little bit. I just want one final thought on the Eagles. At Minnesota, at Dallas, at Buffalo, Chicago, bye, New England, Seattle. What do you do?
Well, I think the only Eagle that's going to get prime return in trade is Ertz. I don't think you're going to get a ton for Jordan Howard or Miles Sanders or Alshon Jeffrey. And Carson Wentz is quarterback, so the value is going to be depressed there anyway. And you could ask for a decent amount for Zach Ertz. He's coming off of a pretty good game, and the tough matchups aren't going to sway the Eagles from throwing the football. And I wonder how many of those tough matchups are actually going to be tough for Ertz going up against the linebackers and safeties on some of those teams. Like Minnesota is going to be legitimately tough. But some of those
It's
other
a
ones,
tight
I'm not
end.
sure they'll be as tough.
But like,
tight end seems to be the one area that these defenses don't necessarily shut down.
and I don't want to
that's-
sell
I-
Zach Ertz and then miss out on the Giants and Washington in the fantasy playoffs.
Ooh.
Like,
No, right, exactly.
hold Zach Ertz.
The problem is that what's your Zach Ertz replacement?
Right.
Forget
because-
Ertz. What about the other guys?
Well, like Dave said, I mean, you're basically you're trading essentially fringe players.
If you can get
So-
any starter for Jordan Howard, go do it.
Of course.
Any starter.
Of course. And, I think with Wentz, like I made an offer it's a 10-team league where somebody has Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. I have Wentz. I offered Wentz and Marquise Brown because this owner's receivers are terrible. So I offered Wentz and Marquise Brown for either quarterback, and I got rebuffed. So, I don't know what the market is for Carson Wentz because of the position that he plays. And, I think people are probably somewhat concerned about another injury coming.
Okay. Would you try to get whatever you could for Alshon Jeffrey? I mean, how confident are we going to be in him with these matchups?
It's the same thing. I mean, he's in that same situation with Howard and the backs, and with Wentz. It's just I don't think people are looking to buy Alshon Jeffrey. I think he's one of those guys that's a throw-in. You hope that he's coming off a game where he scores, or if you're in a PPR league like we saw last week, if he's getting you 12 points, that's not a bad day for him.
Okay, so I just want to ask about Kenny Golladay with these matchups. Would you trade Kenny Golladay for Mike Evans?
To get Evans, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you could do that. I mean, I think the Mike Evans owner would take Galladay, coming off some good performances. He's already
I'm
had
not
his
sure
bye.
the Mike
He's already had
Evans
his
owner
bye.
would do that.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
I think some of them would. I
The
think some
Tampa
of
Bay
them
bye
would.
is after this week.
If Evans has a bad game this week and then he's going into his bye week, I think the Golladay trade could happen if Golladay beats up the Packers.
And he could have a bad game. He does not have a good history against Carolina.
No, terrible. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Let's get into Week 6 a little bit. Here is the Game Time, Tully Time Player of the Week presented by Tullamore Dew. Dave, Jamie, and Heath are going to select a player who they think can surprise us in Week 6. Who wants to go first in Tully Time?
Yeah. I'm excited to go first
There
until
we
late time.
go.
I've been waiting for this all day. John Hillman. I'll go with one of your New York Giants. I think he could surprise in a volume role against the Patriots defense. We've seen some, like the Bills running backs had 177 yards against this Patriots defense. So that's a possibility. He could catch 5 passes like the Washington running backs did last week. I think you could very easily see a situation where he's a top 24 running back, and they might even score a touchdown, and he might be the guy to do it. So John Hillman.
I'm checking you out to see how you're going to look with the Minshew mustache because of our bet.
Yeah, there's no way.
Hillman versus Jordan. There's no way you're going to shave?
There's no way he's going to be worse than Jordan Howard.
Oh,
Fun.
it's a real crap battle.
I wish it was
What's
both
the
on
bet?
Sunday though, so you could watch it, go back and forth to see if it was, like
Yeah, right.
You're gonna know.
Well,
what
we
you're
did.
facing.
Right, I might show up tomorrow with the Minshew
Like,
mustache.
we had this
Hillman
bet last
scores.
year. We had the same, not a Minshew bet, but a Thursday Sunday bet.
I remember.
My guy crapped the bet on Thursday night, and then Dave's guy was even worse on Sunday.
Yeah, that's how these bets always go. Now you've got 2 running backs who are going to be absolute disasters.
Hopefully they're great.
Well,
Wait,
look,
wait,
I
what's
hope
the
they're
bet?
great.
What's the
but-
bet? You're referring to a bet that nobody knows about.
Next week, whoever has a worse game, I have Hillman. Dave has Jordan Howard.
And
The
it's
other
in PPR scoring for this week's games.
right. The other one has to wear a Minshew next week.
Okay.
Mustache.
A real, okay, like a real one.
Yeah.
We have
Like,
to
not
shave.
like a-
We have to shave.
Yeah.
One of these chins will be shaved.
Yeah.
So I just want to let you know, I did read an article yesterday where Pat Shurmur was, it seemed like Eli Penny, I wouldn't be shocked if Eli Penny got more work than Hillman because Hillman was so bad and he's so inexperienced. I just want to let you know, Heath. So it's make the bet at your own risk.
the
It
bet's
wouldn't
been made.
shock
The bet is done. This is why you have
Okay.
to watch CBS Sports HQ. This is the kind of stuff that you see on there happen organically right on in fantasy football today.
All
It was
right, Dave.
beautiful.
Who's your Tully Time Game Time Tully Time Player of the Week?
I'm going to go with Vance McDonald of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this might be the second time this year I'm saying something nice about Vance McDonald, but he's healthy and what's an easy
Hopefully he's
outlet.
healthy. Mispractice on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's true, but hopefully he'll make it for the game. He played last week. An easy target for an inexperienced quarterback is the tight end, and it just so happens that the Chargers' starting safeties are banged up. We've talked about this for a while. Their linebackers don't necessarily cover tight ends very well. This is going to be a nice short area target as an alternative to the run game for the Steelers to go with. So I think if you're really looking for a tight end and you're tired of Jared Cook and maybe even Delaney Walker, I think Vance McDonald can suit up for you.
Is anybody at all interested in Noah Fant against the Titans
No,
on this
Slightly.
same topic?
Slightly.
he's just not involved.
He gets
He's
last
top
week he only
15.
had one target. Before that, I think he had 4 targets. Like 3 or 4 targets a
Right.
game.
He's a low volume tight end. You have to hope that he makes a play after the catch.
or in the end zone.
Right.
Jamie,
It's
who's
too
your
risky.
game time, telly time player of the week?
I'll go a little speculative with Malcolm Brown, just in the off chance that Todd Gurley does not play. Showed up on the injury report Wednesday. Sean McVay expressed some concern about the quad injury, and you look the last 2 games for Gurley, he's clearly dominated playing time, 65 and 67 snaps that he's played, and what will help Malcolm Brown will be, falling in the end zone like he did in week 1 against Carolina. Gurley has fallen in the end zone twice each of the last 2 games. So it's a tough matchup against San Francisco if he does get the starting nod. But if he does, you're going to make him a must-play guy. There's 2 guys that could be, superstars. One is Malcolm Brown. The other is Chase Edmonds. 2 guys that are dealing with injury replacement. We talked about it on Tuesday. I think they could, in Edmonds' case on Tuesday, but I think they're similar. Edmonds would have a higher ceiling just because of the matchup for him. But both guys would be startable if their starters in front of them are out.
And David Johnson did not practice on Wednesday, so the Chase Edmonds claims are looking better than you might have expected.
Okay, yeah. Well, we might as well get into the big news. Just want to give a few stats here for you to chew on before we preview these games. The Chiefs have now gone 11 straight home games without allowing more than 22 fantasy points to a quarterback in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. Based on the rankings, we expect that to end this week with Deshaun Watson. The Saints have allowed 100 yards to a wide receiver in 4 or 5 games. They face Jacksonville. Russell Wilson has 2 bad games and 3 great games this season, which to me is like the most Russell Wilson thing. In his bad games, the defense was pretty good. They allowed 20 points to Cincinnati and 10 points to Arizona. They're facing a team that scores the 8th fewest points per game in the NFL. So just something to chew on. Nothing you're going to do anything with this week, but maybe just a trend to keep an eye on. And
We're talking that game today, right, Adam?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, that's Seattle at Cleveland. Tennessee has not allowed double-digit fantasy points in non-PPR to a running back yet. It's a little fluky, but something to keep in mind as they face Phillip Lindsay, who we'll talk about. And the Steelers and their time of possession. It's so weird. The Steelers are second worst in the NFL in time of possession. They have already faced the best team in time of possession, the second best team, and the 4th best team. They're going to face the 3rd best team this week. So I don't know they're going to have the ball that much. Keep that in mind when you make your James Conner decisions and whatnot. But they might have Mason Rudolph. All right, big news, guys. Patrick Mahomes says his ankle won't limit his ability to scramble. I think he's a top 3 quarterback for everybody. Todd Gurley, thigh contusion. David Johnson, back injury. Pick up Malcolm Brown. He's 50% owned. Pick up Chase Edmonds. He's 46% owned. Darrell Henderson is 20% owned. What kind of role do you think he would have if, and we're not saying Gurley and Johnson are out, but you got to prepare for it. If Gurley's out, what kind of role do you think Darrell Henderson would have?
He might be the one that wraps Todd Gurley's thigh.
Oh,
It
yeah.
needs to be rewrapped.
I think he play on passing downs though.
He could.
I mean, Malcolm Brown, just doesn't profile like that type of player. So I think that could be where they try to force Henderson in the preseason, that they can get some opportunity to play him in that role.
How much do they trust him in that role, though?
If it's not staying into pass block, probably a lot. If they're using him as a protector, then probably little.
Yeah.
So it depends on what the play call is. If he's running wheel routes and dump off passes, then it's easy to use him.
he might get a couple of catches.
What else we got? Christian McCaffrey missed practice with a back injury, but this is not one that we're concerned about, right?
No, but it's just another reason to go handcuff him if you have an open roster spot.
Reggie Bonifone.
Tyreek Hill limited in practice. Sammy Watkins missed practice. At this point, are we thinking Hill in, Watkins out?
Getting that way, yes.
Right, but we're not ranking either one of them. They said that Tyreek needs to get a full practice in before he can play. Hopefully that happens today.
Let's see. Julio Jones didn't practice. Are we worried about Julio Jones?
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah. Welcome to Julio Jones didn't practice. We dealt with that a lot
Well,
last year.
it's Veteran Wednesday too. Like a lot of guys
Right.
don't practice.
If
on
he doesn't practice on Thursday, that's when you might raise one eyebrow.
And Hunter Henry was limited at practice. Do we think he plays?
It's getting closer. Probably not this week, but soon. So pick him up.
Christian Kirk was limited at practice. We'll preview that game against Atlanta tomorrow. Hopefully Kirk can get back out there. unbelievable. Chris Herndon has a hamstring injury, and he's not coming back this week. So
Crazy.
That game is today. Dallas at the Jets. We'll talk about that one. Mason Rudolph still in the concussion protocol. There were a few players who were still in the concussion protocol but returned to practice, so we can be a little optimistic, but just not sure. Mason Rudolph, T.J. Hawkinson. There was one more I don't remember.
Brandon Cooks.
Brandon Cook?
Yep.
Whoa, okay, yeah, Brandon Cooks. Case Keenum is expected to start. Josh Gordon and Julian Edelman are questionable, but they'll play. Rex Burkhead's questionable. He might not play. Philip Dorsett is out. Evan Ingram out. And Saquon Barkley is out. And you can't see it right now. I got to stand up. Ready? Oh, there's the shirt, baby. I got myself a Fantasy Football Today t-shirt. You can do the same thing. You go to our Facebook page, Fantasy Football Today.
Why do you stand up like
page.
a 75-year-old man?
That's the most exercise he's done in 2 months.
Those are. Well, we have to
Your
start
triceps
over.
are screaming right now.
I forgot to hit record. Let's get rid of that. Anyway, get yourself a t-shirt. Compete in our contest. Tell us who your favorite player ever in fantasy is and why. If you want your question read on the air, I think the best way to do it is is Apple Podcasts. Okay, so just leave us a review in Apple Podcasts. I don't think we're allowed to say iTunes anymore. iTunes is done. We're in a new era here. And Ion Fantasy Football is our radio show on Saturday nights, 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern on CBS Sports Radio, Sirius Channel 206, and CBS Sports HQ every day from noon to 1. Watch Fantasy Football Today. If you miss it, watch it again later in the day on demand. CBS Sports HQ, download the CBS Sports HQ app. All right, let's do some 60-second rankings disputes. And let's talk about Phillip Rivers. So Rivers, this is going to be Dave versus Heath. Not separated by too much in the rankings, but Dave, you have Rivers 18th. He's going to be very disappointed in you. And
I thought you
Heath
loved him.
12th.
I do love
Yeah.
him.
It's not unconditional love.
I play fantasy
Clearly.
football with my brain, not my heart.
Okay, against Pittsburgh, 18th for Dave, 12th for Heath, 14th for Jamie. Dave, you're on the clock. You have 30 seconds. Go.
I am very concerned about what this offensive line is starting to look like in L.A. Now they lost Mike Pouncey for the year. That's the center, so the interior of that line is ugly.
Can he come back? Or
The exterior, I think he can.
Yeah.
But it ain't going to be this week against the Steelers. And since the trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick, the Steelers have held Garoppolo, Andy Dalton, Lamar Jackson to less than 15 fantasy points each. So I'm nervous about Phillip Rivers finding 2 touchdowns and getting a lot of yardage. I think there will be some turnovers along the way. He's outside of my top 12 for sure. And I just started looking at the other streaming quarterbacks, and I thought, you know what? They've got a better chance at getting 250 and 2 than Phillip Rivers does. So I'm going to sit my guy.
Yeah, I don't love Rivers this week. I've got him 12th. I would definitely start Gardner Minshew over him, but there's not any other streaming options that I prefer to him. I still think he's got Keenan Allen, he's got Mike Williams, he's got Austin Eckler, he's got plenty of short area targets to dump the ball off. I'm not sure that they can run the ball. The offensive line's not opening any holes at all. He may have to throw it a little more than they would like to, kind of use Austin Eckler in the passing game as the running game.
Yeah.
So I think the yardage will be fine. I've got him for 280 and 2. Maybe he throws a pick. He's a borderline starter.
I think Austin Eckler could have another 8, 9, 10 catch game. That's a name that I have to move up in my PPR rankings for sure. Definite opportunity for him here.
Jamie versus Dave for this second one. I mentioned that in non-PPR, no running back has scored double-digit fantasy points against Tennessee. Well, part of that is Dontrell Hilliard and Ito Smith scored touchdowns, or else Devontae Freeman and Nick Chubb would have gotten there. But still, no huge games. But Phillip Lindsay against the Titans. Jamie, you have him 15th in PPR. Dave, 24th. He's actually the high guy, has him 12th in PPR. And Lindsay has 4 catches in 4 or 5 games. But Jamie, I'll give you the first word on Phillip Lindsay. 15th for you, 24th for Dave.
Yeah, I feel like I'm too high, to be honest with you. I'm worried about the matchup against the Titans just because of what you said. They're very good against the run. And, you've seen Lindsay now take advantage of really 2 good situations. The Packers, when they were, just awful against running backs. And then last week, you had no Melvin Ingram, and then Denzel Perryman got hurt in the game, and he took off and had a strong performance. I'm hopeful that the role in the passing game will continue to sort of, elevate him a little bit, and he keeps, that 4-catch floor. But I don't think you're going to see the same type of running lanes, and he's still not playing more. Royce Freeman's playing more snaps than him. So I'm a little bit concerned. I think he's, I probably still have him ranked a little bit higher than Dave does, but I should move him a little bit closer to 20. I think where I have him in the teens is still a little bit too high. I know that's not a good defense of Phillip Lindsay.
No, that's fine.
But and here I am supposed to poo-poo Phillip Lindsay. Here's just something that I want to say that might help you feel good about Phillip Lindsay is that in the last 3 games, The Titans have allowed 22 catches to opposing running backs. That's on 27 targets. So that's a high catch rate allowed to running backs. They haven't scored any touchdowns through the air, and only on the year have the Titans allowed 2 touchdowns to a running back, period. But there could be some yardage there. It would be smart for the Broncos to lean on Phillip Lindsay more out of the backfield as a pass catcher. Maybe even can break past that 4-catch barrier that we've seen him kind of hit his ceiling against so far this season. I don't hate him terribly in PPR because there are so many other running backs that you just look at and you go, ugh.
That's kind of right.
But it's a tough week for running backs, and it's clearly a tough matchup for the Broncos running backs.
When we did this with the Titans last year, about this point where they had been really good defensively in terms of fantasy points allowed, and we're like, but they're not actually good. And like looking at them right now, they're giving up 4.6 yards per carry to running backs and 6.5 yards or 6.5 catches per game. I don't know that it's a terrible matchup for the Broncos running backs.
The thing, I mean, look, we can dissect the performance against them. I mean, you go back to the Leonard Fournette game where he was just terrible, and then he breaks off the one big run.
That's exactly right.
That's the game where Jordan Wilkins had the big run against them too, right? Where he had 50-yard run.
They were weeks 2 and 3.
Right.
Those 2 plays have grossly inflated their rushing effort.
But Frank Gore and TJ Yeldon averaged 4.8 yards per carry last week.
They did.
Right. No, but
they had 75 yards on
4.7
carries.
They're not a layup, okay? Like, they're obviously a respectable defense. I just,
right.
With Lindsay, he's had 3 bad games and 2 great games. He just doesn't get that much work. But
I don't think unless you have great options, you're benching him outright. But I also don't think you should expect the 2 ceiling games that we've seen from him when those 2 situations have been a little bit better.
The only thing I'd push back on that you said, Adam, as far as the work goes, like, yeah, he's in a committee and has to split everything and doesn't play that many snaps, but he has 1 game with fewer than 15 touches. He has 2 games with fewer than 17. Like,
it's weird that Freeman's playing more, but Lindsey's touching the ball more.
Right.
So it's one of those things where snap count can fool you.
Lindsay also getting almost all of the work inside the 5-yard line. I think Joe Mixon's next. This will be Jamie versus Heath. Jamie, you have him 17th in PPR. No, this is non-PPR. PPR, everybody's got Mixon around 20th. In non-PPR, Mixon, Jamie, you have him 17th. Heath, you have him 26th. Heath, I'll give you the first word on Joe Mixon.
I'm scared of the Bengals falling behind in this game by a couple of scores and not throwing it very much, and the ineffectiveness of their ability to block anybody. This might be a good enough matchup to where they can get the run game going a little bit, but I'm just scared of Mixon in all formats. I
like the workload the last couple of games, but I'm with you too. It's one of those things where it's you're starting him by default. It's not a good matchup. We've seen when Brandon Williams is in there versus when he's not and he's healthy, how good this Ravens run defense can be. You need him to fall in the end zone, and that's he scored once I think so far, and it was on a reception. So he's sort of in that same way I feel about Phillip Lindsay. Like you're just kind of starting him by default.
Because what are you going to do? You're really going to start Kenyon Drake or Adrian Peterson? You're really going to go with Carlos Hyde over Joe Mixon?
You can, and it wouldn't be shocked if those guys are better. It's just I think you buy into – it's the same thing with Lindsay. You buy into what their workload is, and you hope that this is one of those games where they end up with quality production and not terrible production.
And do you have the 49ers behind him?
Yes.
Okay, see, I think that's where – because I've got
that
those are the guys
right
now,
in front of them.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're splitting, that makes me really nervous.
Yeah, I agree. I like Mixon better than the Niners too.
Last one is Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton against Tennessee. Heath, you've got him 14th. You're debating against both Dave and Jamie here. They have Courtland Sutton 25th.
Damie.
But yeah, we like Courtland Sutton, but Heath likes Sutton quite a bit more at 14th in PPR.
Yeah, I like the fact that it seems like over the last 3 weeks he's established himself as the number 1 in Denver. 10 more targets than Emmanuel Sanders over that stretch, and he's playing like he deserves it. He's being targeted heavily in the red zone. And I was flat out wrong about him in the offseason. He's made huge strides as a wide receiver and always had the physical talents. I'm mostly just treating him like a high-end number 2 wide receiver now.
And I'm treating him more like a low-end number 2 wide receiver this week against Tennessee. I appreciate their defense. I don't appreciate Joe Flacco as a passer. Yes, they connected on a 70-yard touchdown last week. It was Courtland Sutton doing a lot of work, and it was a matchup against a Chargers secondary that allows all kinds of flubs from week to week. I don't think Tennessee will allow quite as many. I think he can get you 13 to 15 in PPR, which is why he's a top 25 receiver for me. I don't see the upside, and I could see the touchdown streak that he's on snapping.
I just wonder if, to what Heath said, that they're still viewing Sanders as the number one guy. He's still drawing the tougher coverage. So that's opening things up a little bit for Sutton. The thing about the Titans defense is it's almost like their pass defense and their run defense sort of mirror each other. Like there's so many good players in their secondary, but they give up busts from time to time. And it's like they should be a little bit better than what sometimes they end up doing. Like Malcolm Butler gets lost usually once or twice a game.
Yep.
And so that's kind of where I think Sutton will win. It's the same thing I think with Lindsay and Mixon. Like if you've been starting Sutton the last couple of games, why would you bench him? But I just don't think there's the same ceiling for him like we've seen the last couple of weeks.
Tennessee's faced some good wide receivers. Beckham had 7 for 71. T.Y. Hilton had 4 for 43 and a touchdown. Julio Jones had 4 for 52. Some other wide receivers done better, though. DJ Chark had a better game. D.D. Westbrook left some stats on the table. Mohamed Sanu had 91 yards. John Brown, 5 for 75. So they've been pretty good against wide receivers.
A lot of receivers that you named that were in that 14 fantasy point range in PPR.
Yeah, that's true. All righty. News and notes. Finish up here. Deshaun Jackson expected to miss this week's game. TJ Hawkinson, we don't know yet. They got the Monday night game, so he's still in the concussion protocol, but you might want to make alternate plans. Vontaze Burfict officially out for the season. Aqib Talib, Rams cornerback, he's day-to-day with a rib injury. Dolphins wide receiver Albert Wilson could return this week. Cleveland could finally be getting back their starting cornerbacks, Greedy Williams and Denzel Ward, against Seattle. Jalen Ramsey was limited at practice. Still thinking no on Ramsey, right?
I mean, he's getting closer. The fact he's practicing is a good sign.
All right, Vernon Davis was limited at practice. They're at Miami in the game of the week. Mike Pouncey, you guys said he might come back. I thought he's officially out for the season with the neck.
Oh, no, I just asked a question. I wasn't sure.
I think when you're placed on IR, the option is always there to come back. It really just depends on.
Well, there's two different types. There's designated to return and not designated.
Right, but isn't it anybody that goes on IR
is eligible?
Yes. Right. So I mean, he could have torn his ACL and technically
they don't have to make him their player to be designated to return.
Right, until they're ready to have him return. I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
Right. Well, the Chargers line is banged up. So is the Chiefs line. So is the Niners line. They're going to be starting 2 rookies at tackle, at left and right tackle.
And now NO-JAC, that run game could be in trouble.
That's scary, yeah. And they're at the Rams this week. Washington guard Brandon Scherf, limited in practice, could get back out there. Carolina left tackle Greg Little has a chance to play this week. Tampa Bay could be without the starting right side of their offensive line in London against the Panthers.
They will be without the starting right side of their offensive line.
Okay.
Their starting right tackle is going to be out for several weeks, and their starting right guard played through a broken arm last week.
Yikes. And DJ Fluker for Seattle is out. So, yeah, I don't know that we care. But he's good little run blocker there for Chris Carson.
Well, it depends on who you ask.
The guy that came in for him was pushing people around.
Yeah.
That's good to know. You know what else is good to know? How to save some money. And we can do that for you on SeatGeek. If you need tickets, all right, you're sitting there. You don't need tickets right now. But next time you need tickets to a game, concert, comedy, theater, whatever, and if you're not using SeatGeek, you're crazy. SeatGeek is the best app. I use it all the time. Every single time I need tickets, I'm on SeatGeek. It brings in tickets from all over the web. You don't have to do that work anymore. You don't have to go search other sites. You don't have to go look for the best deals. SeatGeek is going to bring in those seats, and they're going to tell you the best deals. They're going to say, look at this value here. Look at the value on these seats. That's how they rank their tickets. They give it a grade based on value. They give you this interactive seating chart with all these dots on it. These big green dots are the great values. These little red dots, those are the ones you want to avoid. It's just a really easy way. It's great for the customers, great for customer satisfaction. They have over 50,000 five-star reviews, and it's just a very simple way to get your seats for any event that you want to go to. And to save $10, download the SeatGeek app and use the promo code FFT. By the way, every purchase is fully guaranteed. You can shop with confidence. So SeatGeek's giving you $10 off your first purchase if you use our promo code. You download the SeatGeek app, you use the code FFT. $10 off your first purchase. Again, that promo code is FFT for $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Since we're not doing the game until later in the show, we talked about some players in this game, but we haven't talked about the Chargers running backs. So curious how you feel about Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler this week in that Chargers game.
They remain number 2 fantasy running backs. I think you can. I think you can trust.
Number 1
yeah, sure, yes. but Eckler ahead of Gordon. Gordon a little more touchdown dependent than Eckler. Eckler more catches than Gordon by a significant margin.
I'd start Gordon over Eckler in non-PPR. I think, the 16 total touches in his first game back is a good indication that the workload will start to get a little bit more ramped up. And I still think, like I said last week, he has a better chance to score if they get inside the 5.
So how would you rank Eckler and Gordon with like Phillip Lindsay?
Ahead.
Lindsay, Eckler, Lindsay, Gordon, and PPR.
Agreed.
And Gordon, Eckler, Lindsay, and non. That's
Agreed.
Guessing.
Yep.
But yeah, it's real close to that.
Boy, man, what did Eckler have? 3 carries last week?
Not a lot.
Right.
No.
One was inside the 5.
Was it? I know he had a catch.
Yeah, at the end of the first
inside
half,
the
he
5.
had the fumble out of the end zone.
I thought that was not a catch.
I thought it was a carry.
Could be wrong. Okay. I could easily be wrong.
They were in a hurry up, and the fumble. I know people are gonna say he's got a fumble problem. It was 4th down. He was just trying to get the ball over the pylon.
Okay. Houston is at Kansas City. Let's get to the games. So, like, if you just stat of the game is just everything I keep saying about the Chiefs and what they've done at home. I told you about the quarterbacks, but also wide receivers haven't done very well at home in Arrowhead against the Chiefs. However, you look back. This is going back to last year. They really didn't face that many good ones, and the good ones typically did pretty well. Keenan Allen being a noteworthy exception, but he left with an injury in the second quarter. So
he should never play at Arrowhead ever again. He gets hurt every time he's there.
Does he?
He tore his ACL there. He hurt his back there. I mean, it's just never play there again.
Good to
Got
know.
mugged in the parking lot.
But I guess Will Fuller, right? Disappointing. Boom! Biggest game we've had for a wide receiver all year in week 5. We're going to start Hopkins, but how confident are you in Will Fuller?
Very.
When you say very, are we talking like top 12 very or
Top 20?
I'm just outside of there because it's Will Fuller and we just know what the boomer bust nature
When
is.
he gets hot. And
That's true.
Those targets
That's true.
were there, and I think it's going to be a shootout. So
I'm not sold on it being a total shootout. I don't think this would be an amazing banana. I know that sounds crazy, but
Well,
I don't know if the Chiefs can actually hold up their end of the bargain.
the over on the 55.
What did
I would
Houston
take the-
learn from last 2 weeks of Detroit
Right.
and Indianapolis?
Yes.
Running the ball. And I don't know that Bill O'Brien learned anything from
But
that.
this team doesn't have the same caliber.
Oh, don't be so sure that doesn't mean that they won't try.
Yeah,
I'm sure that
I don't
they
know.
will.
Bill O'Brien.
I don't
just-
know.
I also don't think that the Texans defense is very good.
Pass defense isn't.
Fuller, I would start
Look
in
who they're
most
going
cases. I wouldn't start him over Odell Beckham and Juju. But
No.
he's right at that range.
I'd start him over Odell.
Ooh. I can see why you would do that. I think it's close. The thing that worked the best for the Texans is that their offensive line is getting better. And last week they took on a team with no pass rush.
And
They're
what do
doing
they
that
have
again this week. A team with no pass
Yeah,
rush.
Chris Jones is hurt, and who knows
And
what
Frank
he's
Clark
doing.
isn't getting the job
Frank
done.
Clark, excuse me, his shoulder's banged up.
They also are taking on last week a team with a terrible secondary. This week, wouldn't you say Kansas City's secondary probably doesn't rank very
It's
high?
bad. They've been worst against the slot.
I know,
which
and
is interesting.
they can mix and
Yeah.
match Fuller in and out of there. I don't know. Deshaun Watson explained that last week the Falcons were trying to take DeAndre Hopkins away. There were busts all over the place. It got Will Fuller wide open. It's pretty obvious. Could the same thing happen
He's
again
not
this
going
week?
for 14, 200 and
No, but could he
whatever
go
it was.
for 80 and a touchdown?
Yes.
I think that's absolutely within the realm of possibility. I just have him as a number 2 receiver.
I get
as
it.
a top
I mean,
24 guy.
It's not a matter of where he's ranked. It's a matter of do you start or sit him. And I think you'd be hard pressed to sit him at this point.
Would you start Sony Michel or Will Fuller?
Fuller and PPR easily.
Yes. Fuller and PPR. I think I might go Sony and non.
Okay. Melvin Gordon or Will Fuller?
Fuller.
Okay. So- yeah,
Melvin
sorry.
and none.
So let's talk about Carlos Hyde. All right, because maybe you're desperate for a running back this week. We do have 4 teams on bye. He's 86% owned. You can't really pick him up. But I tried to find a rhyme or reason. He's got 2 games with 20 carries, and he's got 3 games with like 10, 12, 10 carries. I don't really know that there is one, but we know the Chiefs' Achilles heel is their run defense. It's terrible. So you'd be smart to go in there and try to run the ball a little bit and try to control possession. Would you start Carlos Hyde? Like, who's a better flyer this week, Carlos Hyde or Adrian Peterson at Miami?
Hyde.
I'll say Peterson because I think Hyde might end up sharing a little bit more than you might expect with Duke.
I would give a slight nod toward Hyde. You need the Chiefs offense to struggle early and the Texans to get a lead for Hyde to be great.
Would you start Hyde or a 49ers running back against the Rams?
Hyde in non-PPR, I would start the 49ers guys in PPR over.
I'll take the 49ers either way.
Me too.
Okay, so Hyde we're going to call a low-end number 2 or a flex.
High-end
right
number
now.
3. Yeah, right in the Jordan Howard range.
And if you're desperate at running back, and let's just lay out a scenario where you picked up Chase Edmonds or Malcolm Brown and the starter in front of them is going to play and you need to trade somebody off your bench, hide somebody you can target in a late week trade to have a spot starter this week. He's not a bad spot starter. I would prefer AP.
It's funny. That's one of the guys I dropped to pick up Malcolm Brown was Carlos Hyde.
Oh, I don't blame you for that
Yeah.
because of the upside with Malcolm Brown. You can probably go and pick up Hyde on Friday if I don't think there's going to be a mad rush to get Carlos Hyde off the waiver wire. So I totally get that.
By the way, Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, just so it's said, are both top 3 quarterbacks. We don't have to talk about them. We're obviously going to start DeAndre Hopkins, and we talked about Will Fuller. Kiki QT would just be a dart throw.
Yeah, I mean, he's not bad if Kenny Stills is out again.
Yeah, dart throw.
And then what about a tight end? What about Akins or Fells?
Can't count on him.
I still like Akins over Fells, but ugh.
Okay.
Dude, I would take Noah Fant.
You know, I'm just right. I'm really bringing this up for the Evan Ingram owner because like I had to pick up Jason Witten in a league. Gerald Everett's gone. Chris Herndon's not coming back this week. Can't count on Hunter Henry. So you might be in dire straits at tight end. Target a high scoring game. I would rather have Witten. You guys would rather have Witten, right?
Yes.
The Jets?
Yeah, I look at Jeff Swain too. Without O'Shaughnessy there, that's they've been throwing to their tight ends about 7 times a game.
So the Chiefs running backs are pretty interesting here because the Texans allow the 3rd most receiving yards per game to opposing running backs. Now they have faced Alban Camara, Christian McCaffrey, Devontae Freeman, but so 5 running backs have had 5 or more catches, 6 running backs have had 40 or more receiving yards. Freeman caught a touchdown. This is an opportunity. I would think for Damian Williams, which running back do you like better in this game?
Williams in both formats for exactly what you said.
I like Williams better. I hope that he needs to do something in this game. I can't imagine he's going to continue getting touches with the production he's given us so far.
Yeah, it's a big week. We got to prove a little bit here.
Yeah, and just to piggyback what you said, Adam, they allow the most receptions to running backs. It's 45, and I don't think it's particularly close.
Wow. So LaShawn McCoy, Carlos Hyde, Damian Williams. I may have just reversed the order of the rankings, but how would you rank the running backs in this game?
I would take the Chiefs guys ahead of Hyde.
I go Williams, Hyde, McCoy.
Williams, McCoy, Hyde.
Okay. So would you rather start LaShawn McCoy or let's stick with Damian Williams. Damian Williams or Emmanuel Sanders?
I'll take Williams.
Yeah, I'll take Williams and I'll take Sanders in PPR.
I think I have Sanders higher. I don't love either one.
Dave, give me your overall thoughts on the Chiefs wide receivers. Obviously, statuses are up in the air.
Thanks for giving me the easy question, Adam. Look, if Tyreek Hill plays, you know what to do. If Sammy Watkins plays, I feel bad for you, but you're probably going to start him anyway. I liked Byron Pringle as the replacement for Watkins in the slot. Kind of a unique type of slot receiver for them, and he's got pretty good speed. I would look for pass catchers in this offense that are going to be better in the short area than the deep ball, because I think that I don't know how much time Patrick Mahomes is going to have to throw. And I know he throws deep balls all the time, and he can just, flick at the wrist.
But this pass rush
and
ain't
he's doing it. Who, for the Texans?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're okay. And against this offensive line, I think they can get to Mahomes.
That's the key is can they take advantage of the situation, because their pass rush has not been good. I mean, they've been missing Clowney. J.J. Watt has had, hit or miss games so far this season. And so I just wonder if, look, if Mahomes isn't right. I know what he said, that he's going to be fine. But if he's not right, then it's a different conversation. But, I mean, I'll trust Andy Reid even with, the 3 of us playing offensive line for him with Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, poor Patrick. He would die.
The Texans have rushed the passer so far this year for the most part.
Well, okay, so obviously, Tyreek Hill, if he plays, he start him, as Dave said. If Tyreek Hill plays and Sammy Watkins plays, would you start Sammy Watkins?
Flex.
He would be a flex. He's going to be a flex either way, because he's not
Okay.
going to be at 100% with the hamstring. He's not. You shouldn't have very high expectations.
This is the Sammy Watkins game because nobody will buy in and he'll go off.
Right,
and
sure.
He'll limp off at the end of the game with an ankle injury.
And I got to tell you, I disagree on the Texans pass rush being bad. I think back to that Kyle Allen game a couple weeks ago. He had 3 fumbles. They were in his grill like crazy. They're top 10 in Sports Info Solutions, quarterback pressures, hurries, and if they have 15 sacks
Week
on
1,
the season.
they were a disaster against the Saints.
I think they've gotten better since then. And I think that this matchup should be tough on Mahomes.
That's what I'm asking.
Well,
I mean, look,
guys,
I just think what I've seen.
Focus on the Chiefs wide receivers, though, if you could.
Right, but it all works together because if
Hardman,
Mahomes,
Demarcus Robinson, I understand, but
Sid Hardman.
I need to know if I'm starting these guys.
Sid Hardman.
I would try and stay away from. Honestly, I would probably try and stay away from all of them.
If the top guys are out,
Sounds
though,
crazy.
all 3 are in play. I mean, I think they're all number 3 receivers, including Hardman.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance that McCole Hardman's the number 1 receiver for the Chiefs in this game.
Agreed.
If Hill and Watkins are out, maybe we could talk about this more tomorrow when we get an injury report. But if Hill and Watkins are out, are you going to drop Patrick Mahomes, outside the top 5?
No.
Maybe.
I'd start Kyler Murray over
Russ. I think Russ would be a safer start.
All right, cool. Start Travis Kelce and sit the DSTs. And we're going to take a break here on Fantasy Football today. We still have 6 or 7 more. I'm not sure we're going to get to all of them. We might save one for tomorrow, but we got a lot of AFC home games, Saints and Jaguars, when we come back. All right, Saints at Jaguars. We got decent quarterback matchups here, but I know you guys like Minshew a lot better. So Minshew, we'll start with the Jags. Minshew's 53% owned, 12th for Jamie, 9th for Heath, 15th for Dave. Heath, who are some quarterbacks you're starting Minshew over this week?
Matthew Stafford, Phillip Rivers, Jared Goff, Jameis Winston, Jimmy Garoppolo, Carson Wentz, Baker Mayfield.
Is everybody starting Minshew over Aaron Rodgers?
No.
Okay, just Heath.
And that one,
back to back.
I didn't say Aaron Rodgers because they are back to back and very close in the projections. And if Devontae Adams shows up at practice today or tomorrow, and we find out he's going to play, then that will change.
Okay, gotcha. So Leonard Fournette against a great run defense. Any concerns at all?
You have to start him.
Yep.
There's just too much potential to put him on your bench.
Okay. So let's talk about the Jacksonville wide receivers here. DJ Chark, he has been kind of matchup proof, actually. But we've seen what Lattimore has done the last 2 weeks to Mike Evans and to Amari Cooper. Sorry. So I don't know if he's going to shadow Chark or not, but any concerns about Chark and any interest in D.D. Westbrook, who is 66% owned?
Well, I would be surprised if he didn't shadow Chark. But the Jaguars started using Chark in the slot last week, and that really helped him open up. The Panthers did not travel Bradbury into the slot to cover Chark then. They actually didn't travel Bradbury at all. That's just a note for the Panthers that when we talk about their game against Tampa Bay. Long story short, I think Lattimore will be the toughest matchup that Chark will face this year. But the way that Gardner Minshew targets him, uses him, every week it's deep balls, every week it's end zone targets. I can't do it. I cannot respect Marshawn Lattimore enough to bench DJ Chark this week.
I wouldn't play him in daily, though.
See, I might play him in daily just because everyone else won't.
We'll see.
I think everybody else will.
We'll see what the projected ownership is.
I'm interested to know because
I think D.D. Westbrook's a better play in daily.
On DraftKings, I think you're probably right because the full PPR is going to be to his advantage and the targets have been there and he's getting close and he's getting close and that's a favorable matchup, certainly more so than what Chark would face. But he's lining up more on the outside because Chark is lining up more in the slot. So it's interesting that Jacksonville is actually like doing clever things offensively.
John DeFilippo.
Yeah, it's refreshing because for years it was, Blake Bortles chucking it wherever he could and hoping that the pass is completed, and it was a mess.
Yeah. Jamie actually has Chark 19th. Heath has him 6th, and Dave is right in the middle. So we all have Chark as a start. Would you start D.D. Westbrook or who are the wide receivers that we talked about? Or like Sammy Watkins if he plays?
I'd probably go Watkins.
I'd go D.D.
Alrighty. And Heath, why don't we talk about the Saints? Anything to know, like anything other than Camara and Thomas?
No, not for me.
Okay. How much do you like Thomas if Jalen Ramsey plays?
I will still start him if Jalen Ramsey plays. He won't be my number one receiver anymore, but I'm still going to, there's nothing that could happen. You could bring back Ronnie Lott and have him play safety and double team him. I'm still going to start him.
Would you sit him if he was up against 2 Jalen Ramseys on every play?
Are these full-size Jalen Ramseys? Or
full-size Jalen Ramseys. Every play.
Full-size Jalen Ramseys?
2 of them.
I know some people might be a little frustrated with Alban Camara right now. He's the number 10 running back in non-PPR, number 6 in PPR. Not necessarily a tough matchup. The Jaguars allow the 5th most fantasy points to running backs, 5.65 yards per carry. A lot of that was Christian McCaffrey last week, but they're
back on the road.
And you start, who's back on the road? The Saints? Is that better for Camara?
Back-to-back weeks on the road.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, I mean, obviously,
last time he was on the road. What was Seattle?
Yep. Week Trey.
Cool. So moving on to Dallas at the Jets. Stat of the game. The term Big Apple originally referred to horse racing, according to mentalfloss.com. The Big Apple was used to describe a big money prize at important horse races held around the city. Wouldn't you know? So Dak is a top 8 quarterback. The Jets have not been that bad. So Tom Brady scored 24 points, but Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, and Carson Wentz scored 17 or fewer in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. Those are bad games. So any concerns at all about Dak? Anything holding you back on Dak?
No.
Well, normally Dak would be a contender for a top 5 ranking, and he's out of there this week. Last week, he kind of had some flukish plays go his way, come from behind against the Packers, but that was a good Packers defense. I think the cornerbacks for the Jets absolutely stink. The outside corners especially, and that's where Cooper and Gallup are going to line up predominantly. I think their pass rush stinks. Even with the offensive line issues for the Cowboys, I think Dak Prescott can be a top 10 quarterback.
And everybody's starting Cooper. Michael Gallup, how would you compare him to the Jacksonville wide receivers?
Favorably. Like top 20.
In the same range as Chark and behind, ahead of Westbrook.
Yeah. I'm mostly just starting Michael Gallup. He's played 3 games. He's been awesome in all 3 of them.
Would you start Michael Gallup or James Conner?
Gallup in PPR. I think I probably
Gallup
have
in PPR,
Conner in non.
I might have Conner in both. I'm feeling optimistic about James Conner.
Jason Witten is a top 12 tight end in non-PPR, and he's 12th in both formats. So, he's 63% owned. The Jets so far have only faced one good tight end. It was Ertz last week. They gave up 5 catches, 57 yards, and a touchdown. Witten, I doubt anybody loves Witten, but he still leads the team in targets inside the 10-yard line. So you can take a look at Witten. You're going to start Zeke. You're going to start Le'Veon Bell. Do you like or love Le'Veon Bell this week?
Like
in non-PPR, love in PPR.
Oh,
that is cute. I like that. And you guys do not have a Jets. You're sitting Darnold, and you don't have a Jets wide receiver ranked in your top 40. I feel a little more optimistic with Chris Herndon out. It's Sam Darnold's back. I know they're not going to put up. They're probably not going to put up big numbers. Jets wide receivers. Jets wide receivers. Oh, no, which one?
The one that we liked most coming into the year, or the one that got 17 targets and Sam Darnold's only start, or the one that got 9 targets last week.
I'm gonna take Crowder this week because I love the outside, the way they play outside receivers. In Dallas, their corners are really good. So I would go with the slot guy this week. But I'm surprised that neither of them are even in your top 40.
It's a good week for receivers. They're not very good right now. We don't know what the impact of, as he said, the impact of Demaryius Thomas on Crowder and on Anderson will be with Darnold there, because last week it was bad for both.
I believe you've used the term discovery week in the past, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good discovery week for the Jets passing game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, not a bad beat the waiver wire week for the Jets passing game. And Dallas's DST is 2nd for Dave and Jamie and 6th for Heath. It is a good week for wide receivers because I'm looking at guys in your 30s, and it's D.D. Westbrook and Emmanuel Sanders and DK Metcalf, the Dolphins guys, Auden Tate. So it is a good week. All right, Seattle at Cleveland. Stat of the game. There's a fun one. Will Dissly leads the Seahawks in targets inside the 10-yard line, and he plays Arizona in Week 16. Congratulations, Will Dissly owners. If you're making it there, you're going to win your championship. He also has a good matchup this week. Cleveland allows the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends. As we go through this game, Wilson, top 6. Chris Carson, like him or love him?
Love.
Love.
Heath, how come you only like Chris Carson? The Browns are allowing 5 yards per carry to running backs. A lot of that was last week with San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, I like him and Le'Veon Bell similarly in non-PPR, and I expect Bell to get more targets, so I love him in PPR, but only like Carson still.
Oh, so here's the stat I wanted to give about Russell Wilson, right? He's had 3 massive games, 30 or more fantasy points. He's had 2 games with fewer than 20. So in the bad games, I may have already given this, I'm sorry. In the bad games, Seattle allowed 20 points to Cincinnati and 10 points to Arizona. In the good games, they gave up 26 or more points to Pittsburgh, the Saints, and the Rams. Cleveland's so far a bad offense. 8th fewest points per game in the NFL. That's including a 40-point game against Baltimore. Like I said, you're not doing anything about it. You're not sitting Russell Wilson. But this could be a game where he doesn't throw much. And, that could mean 4 targets for Tyler Lockett, which has happened, I think, like 3 times this year. So I just want to throw that out there if you have any reaction.
It could happen. I don't disagree with the fact that it could happen. I'm not to the point to where I'm expecting Cleveland's offense to just be a bad offense all year.
There's something interesting about the line for this game. It's Cleveland -1.
No, I think it's moved to Seattle -2. It started at Cleveland.
But it started at Cleveland -1?
It opened at Cleveland -1, but that was before Monday Night Football.
Don't you think this line should be like Seattle -6?
No.
To me, it seems like Cleveland
9 points better than Cleveland.
I feel like Cleveland just can't get their act together.
Not true.
Seattle's coming off a game where they just scored 30 points. I feel like that someone in Vegas knows something about the Browns doing something.
I think they just haven't decided the Browns suck.
That's how it works.
If even with this line, you're saying that Seattle's 5 points better than Cleveland on a neutral field?
That by the way is a myth. I actually spoke to a bookmaker on a podcast that I used to host, a gambling podcast, a couple years ago, and that whole 3 points for being at home is not true. It depends on the team. It depends on the home field advantage. So
sure. And it is in the Super Contest. It's Seattle -1, so that's where I would imagine the line. It seems like they want you to take Seattle.
DK
when
Metcalf.
That's the case.
Starter sit. DK Metcalf.
Sit.
He's a boom bust flex.
Okay. And Jarvis Landry or DK Metcalf?
Landry.
I'll take Landry in PPR.
Landry in both.
Will Dissly is a top 6 tight end. 5th for David, Jamie, 6th for Heath.
If the Browns were smart, they would go crazy with Landry this week because the Seahawks like to play in base defense. They don't use a nickel corner very often. When they do, he's not very good. There could be opportunities for Landry to pick up a ton of catches this week.
Looks like
they're not smart. They're not smart.
Well, they don't use him like
this
that
game.
anymore.
This
but
game
they
should be
should.
decided.
They did 2 weeks ago.
The Seattle defensive line and the Cleveland offensive line. If Seattle's going to get in Baker Mayfield's face like every other team has done, then it's going to be a terrible situation for them.
I know you guys don't like Baker Mayfield. Would you start any of the streaming guys other than Gardner Minshew over Baker Mayfield?
Almost all of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like who?
Garoppolo, Stafford.
Oh, I wasn't
Kyle
counting.
Allen.
I wasn't counting them. Kyle Allen would count. Dalton?
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Cousins?
What's Dalton gonna have to do for you to buy into him?
You really hate
He has to
Dalton.
apologize for what happened in high school. Actually, I do have Dalton right there. Mayfield, so there.
Yes, Cousins over Mayfield.
Yep.
Okay.
You starting Dalton or Rivers?
Rivers. My best friend in the league versus
Your arch nemesis.
Do you have Dalton outside your top 18?
He's 19.
Nick Chubb is going to start him, but it is a tough matchup. The Seahawks allow 3.8 yards per carry to running backs. Joe Mixon, James Conner, David Johnson, Todd Gurley all average 3.6 yards per carry or worse, but Mixon gets so much work, so you're starting him. And then Beckham, is Beckham in your top 10 this week?
No.
Would you start McLovin over Beckham?
Yes.
I don't know who that is.
F1. Do you know who that is?
I'll just let Dave answer that.
F1. Odell Beckham.
Okay.
I love the matchup for McLaurin.
Josh,
And with Keenum back, I think it's all systems go.
Josh Gordon
It's just
or
so awesome to hear. We like a receiver more
Because of Case
Keenum's
Keenum,
back.
right?
that's
Yeah.
right. Would you go with Josh Gordon or Beckham?
Back.
Gordon.
Ooh, that's a good one right there.
Matt, I wish you had heard the one earlier when you didn't hit
Josh
record.
Gordon.
Okay.
Adam tells everybody, sorry, guys, we have to start over. I didn't hit record. And Heath gives this evil, guttural sigh, like straight from, like,
I wanted to punch him in the throat.
Yeah,
You made Heath so mad, his armpits are sweating so much, he's going to start dripping out of his shirt.
Yep.
Oh, no.
Well, that's going to make your room smell even worse. All right, we're going to take a break here. We got a few games left. When we come back on Fantasy Football Today, we'll finish up the AFC home games. Cincinnati's at Baltimore. Stat of the game number one. Only one wide receiver has had 60 yards or a touchdown against the Bengals in their last 3 games. They have faced juggernaut offenses, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and Arizona. They've done well against wide receivers lately. And what does that mean for Marquise Brown, if anything?
Kind of the same thing it does every week. You just start him as a borderline number 2, number 3 receiver.
Okay.
You hope he strikes deep and kicks butt. But you know how it is. Boom or bust. That's what he is. How've the Bengals been against running backs, Adam?
Not very good. In fact, if you know if you get 15 carries, you're almost guaranteed. Oh, a streak ended last week. It was like 10 in a row that had 15 carries, got 100 yards or a touchdown, and David Johnson had only 91 yards against the Bengals. So
He also had 65 yards receiving.
I know, yeah, he still had a good game, but he didn't get 100 rushing yards or a touchdown.
Okay, so just change it from 100 rushing to 100 total, and the streak is alive.
Of course, Chase Edmonds had the touchdown. So was that a catch or a run?
It was a run.
It was a run, so that kind of screwed up the.
Yeah, Cincinnati's front seven isn't very fast, and teams are just exploiting the hell out of it.
So are we loving Mark Ingram this week?
We're loving Mark Ingram, but we're really loving Lamar Jackson because he can also take advantage.
Okay, and Mark Andrews is a start.
Yeah,
Mark Andrews.
there aren't a lot of tight ends to crush on, and he's a good one. So you're starting him.
He's basically back-to-back with Will Dissly, and he has not been as good as he was in those first 2 games, but still 7 to 8 targets in each of his last 3 games just hasn't quite been as productive.
Well, Lamar Jackson hasn't been as good.
It's true. It's true. All right. Okay, that's Baltimore. Ingram, would you start Ingram over Connor and Mixon?
Mixon for sure.
Yeah. I start him over Connor in non-PPR for sure. It's close in PPR.
I've got him back-to-back in PPR, Ingram with the nod.
Yeah, I've got them both. Like Ingram's a top 10 back in non-PPR. Connor's a top 10 back in PPR.
I almost think I've got Ingram too low.
Depends on format.
All right, let's talk about Andy Dalton. He's 61% owned. He's the first 3 games were against Seattle, San Francisco, and Buffalo. Of all the quarterbacks that those 3 teams has faced, Andy Dalton scored the most fantasy points against Seattle, the most against San Francisco, and the most against Buffalo. Then John Ross got hurt, and he had the fewest fantasy points against Pittsburgh and the second fewest fantasy points against Arizona of all the quarterbacks that have faced those 2 teams. So,
dude, he was headed for single digits against Arizona.
Right.
It took a lucky break for Tyler Boyd for Andy Dalton.
It was kind of a similar game to Jameis Winston, though, wasn't it? Like they both were just terrible for 3.5 quarters, and then
it's amazing that bad quarterbacks can still find a way just on a couple of fortuitous late plays. And if that's the reason why you're starting Andy Dalton, then by all means go for it.
Well, I mean, I don't think you're expecting pretty quarterback play from him. You're expecting
no, but you want a quarterback that's got a chance to play well for 4 quarters and not just mop up at the end of the game.
No, I kind of expect him to be a garbage guy. I mean, that's what Andy Dalton is. He's not going to be an aesthetically pleasing quarterback for the majority of it. And we had this conversation last week. I told my opinion was he wasn't going to have a high ceiling. I think he's kind of got that 22, 24 sort of cap on his head, and I think it's the same situation this week. That Ravens secondary is not good. They just lost Jefferson, so it's another situation where Andy Dalton can win.
And with Dalton, would you rather start Dalton or Carson Wentz this week? Wentz is Minnesota.
I would go with Wentz.
Dalton.
You guys, look, I don't really have a personal problem with Dalton.
You do.
No, I hate his offensive line. I think his receiving core right now is miserable.
Is it because of his hair? Is it a red hair thing?
He was actually chill. And first of all, the haircut is cool. Like I kind of wish that I had that kind of. I wish I had hair. But I look at Andy Dalton and just the situation around him, and I don't think it's good. And he's on the road. And For whatever stupid reason, I still think the Ravens defense is pretty good.
When their defense actually was good, he's been good against them. I mean, his track record.
He had good receivers.
4 games.
His
against
receivers
them
suck. I mean,
was good. Yeah, but their defense was much better for Baltimore.
All right, well, look, nobody loves Andy Dalton this week. The highest he is in the rankings is 15th.
Well, I feel like I should love him as much as Dave hates him. I want to make him feel better.
But you can start him over Jimmy Garoppolo and Carson Wentz if depending on who you're asking. Obviously, not for Dave. Joe Mixon. Who are some guys that you might start over Mixon because it is a bad matchup for him? Like some guys that aren't obvious.
I mean, I think Dave brought it up earlier. It's like Adrian Peterson and Carlos Hyde would be the ones that you could look at. Now, I will say this: if you have the 2 inch replacement guys starting, those are probably better options in terms of Malcolm Brown and Chase Edmonds. Edmonds for sure.
But you don't have it ranked with Hyde ahead of Mixon, do you?
No. I would still start Mixon just because I'm pretty confident in his touches.
Yeah.
Comparatively to what Hyde may or may not get sharing with Duke Johnson, and the same thing with Peterson with Chris Thompson. I mean, Peterson, hasn't I think had more than 12 carries in a game.
Probably sounds about right.
In PPR, I would start Chris Thompson over him.
Yeah, that's something you could certainly do.
Heath, would you start? How would you approach the wide receivers for Cincinnati? Boyd and Tate.
Tyler Boyd is a must-start wide receiver every week.
Double-digit targets in all but 1 game this year.
Fantastic. Auden Tate's a borderline flex, low-end flex, maybe a number 3, but barely.
Okay.
So, dirty secret, Andy Dalton should have had a much better game last week. Tate dropped 2 passes, including one right on the doorstep of the goal line.
But this is who Andy Dalton is. I mean,
well, but that's not on Dalton. That's on Auden Tate.
But again, this is who Andy Dalton is. It's either the guys around him stink, he makes mistakes, offensive line lets him down. I mean, that's his career.
Yeah,
you know what you're getting with Andy Dalton.
Yeah, he's a Bengal.
All right, we got to wrap. We got to wrap on this game. Let's go.
Tate is a touchdown-dependent tight end playing wide receiver.
And speaking of
touchdown
dependent,
I agree with that because the 2 weeks prior to that, he wasn't a touchdown-dependent guy. Last week was the first time he scored a touchdown in his career.
Well, the 2 weeks before, he had 6 for 88, and then against Pittsburgh, he had 4 for 50. So,
but he's had 16 targets. He had 22
targets.
targets.
He had 10 catches on 16 targets. That was good. I don't think he's a dynamic receiver. I just think he's a big dude who makes a lot of sense for Dalton to lean on when they're inside the 10. How often will they be inside the 10 against Baltimore?
Maybe a lot.
Baltimore's defense is not good.
That's the difference in the way you guys perceive this game, obviously. Dave has more faith in the Ravens DST than Jamie and Heath do, and I think that's leading to these kind of going around in circles here. Let's go.
Tate shouldn't even be a fantasy option. I think he can score and get you 40 yards with it. I just don't see him as a high upside type of play.
I like the Ravens DST because I think Dalton's going to make some mistakes
and get sacked. He's been sacked like
but their
crazy.
Defense as a whole is not very good.
Okay, Tennessee's at Denver here. And we talked about Phillip Lindsay. You're not really going to take it. Well, look, you could go with Royce Freeman. He could still get double-digit touches like he typically does. It's just
he's a fine flex.
Yeah. And this week with the buys, he's not the worst option. But you'd go with Carlos Hyde over Freeman, I assume, right?
I'd go with Freeman over Hyde.
Same.
Oh, I was wrong.
I'd go with Hyde over Freeman in non-PPR.
Okay, makes sense. We're sitting the quarterbacks. Derrick Henry. I just want to let everybody know where Derrick Henry has finished as a running back in his 5 games. In non-PPR, RB3, RB7, RB19, 18, and 16. In PPR, RB3, RB9, RB23, 22, and 22. He has been outside the top 23 straight weeks. And is it a tough matchup against Denver? Maybe still to be determined. They allow the 6th most fantasy points to running backs, but look, they've allowed good games, but guys who have had a ton of carries, that's probably what you're going to get from Derrick Henry. So everybody's got him ranked in the top 15, except Heath has him 18th in PPR. Any wide receiver? Okay, Courtland Sutton, yes. Any other wide receivers in this game?
Sanders a flex.
With that type of excitement level.
I wouldn't be surprised if Sanders is better. I'm not ranking it that way, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Sanders or Auden Tate?
Sanders.
I might go Tate. I think Tate's got a better chance to score.
I'll go Sanders.
Now, 3 tight ends have caught a touchdown against the Titans with 4 or fewer targets. And Noah Fant has had 3 to 4 targets in 4 of 5 games, only 1 last week. So I'm not trying to make a huge case for him.
Well, I have him ranked 15th, I believe. You get past really tight end number 7. And you could hope they score 8 points. Like, that's what you're hoping. You get 8 PPR fantasy points.
Sure.
Noah Fant could do that.
Yeah, I'd start Ellison tonight over him if you still can. I would start Jeff Swain over him also.
I would start Ellison over him. I'm not sure about Swain.
All right, and no quarterbacks in this game. I think we're pretty much done here. Delaney Walker. Is he part of that top 8?
No. But he is towards the upper end of the rest of the...
He stinks.
He does.
His playing time is dwindling, too. He's been under 50% each of the last 2 weeks.
But there aren't 10 good tight ends this week.
Well, and the Broncos, I don't think there's been a tight end that's had more than 7 non-PPR points against them this year. And for Walker to do that, he's got to score. He hasn't scored since week 1. He's had 2 end zone targets since week 1.
I only have 7 tight ends projected for 7 non-PPR points this week.
Okay, so I think if you're starting Delaney Walker, you're hoping he gets you like 50 yards.
I've got him projected for 5.1, so
51 yards.
That makes him 10th.
Will that be his second best total of the season? Third best total of the season?
Third, yes.
I'm not sure.
He's been terrible the last 2 weeks. So Walker, but he's still ahead of Jason Witten, still ahead of Noah Fant, but he's behind like Gerald Everett.
Total this season.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to save Pittsburgh and the Chargers for tomorrow. Jamie, give me 30 seconds on Washington and Miami.
Close your eyes. Do something else. Don't watch the game. I think if you're looking at it, it's a chance for both of these teams to get on track just because the defenses are so bad. Washington should have success with their backfield because the Dolphins are so bad against the run. So Peterson's in play, and Thompson should have one of his better games at PPR. McLaurin's a must-start guy. And then for the Dolphins, it's sort of dart throws, but I think Kenyon Drake has an opportunity here to be successful. Hopefully he gets his season high in touches because he just hasn't gotten the work yet. And they're talking up Mark Walton, which is, strange.
That's because Kalen Balazs stinks.
Rank the running backs in this game.
Huh?
Rank the running backs.
Do I have to?
In PPR?
Either one, both.
Thompson, Drake, Peterson, in PPR.
Yes.
And in non-PPR?
I'll say
Peterson,
Peterson,
Thompson,
Drake, Thompson.
Okay, how about McLaurin's a must start? Any other wide receiver? I mean, we got some opportunities here for the Dolphins guys. They're in like the Auden Tate range, right?
But you can't feel good about it.
They're such dart throws because Williams should be the better of the two. But if Wilson comes back, now you have where the target's going.
Mm-hmm. Okay, by the way, Jamie said, close your eyes, do something else, don't watch the game. That is actually exactly what is written on the back of every seat at Hard Rock Stadium. So how about that? A very nice way to end
It's
the
really
show.
interesting living in South Florida and listening to how people are approaching this game because the Dolphins can easily win.
Yes, I know. This is the Tua Bowl right here. It's a big game.
This exactly. And it's, I think the players coming off a bye week, like if you were to just look at it right now, the quarterbacks, Keenum should be better, but I think it's close to a wash. If you just start to nitpick like talent for talent, it's like you give Washington a slight edge almost across the board, but it's slight. And I would say the coach is better.
Which
in
DST
Miami.
do you like better?
Huh?
Which DST do you like better?
Washington.
I like Washington.
Washington.
I think Washington wins.
I think they're both in play. I think Miami wins.
I think look, both these teams, this is like their last winnable game.
No, the Dolphins still get the Steelers and the Bengals and the Jets.
If the Redskins get the number 1 pick, do you think they take Tua?
Ooh, that's interesting.
It depends on who's making the call and how Haskins looks.
I think they do it. I think they Josh Rosen it. We're out of here, everybody. We have got the NFC home games plus the and Jamie's gone. And plus the Chargers next week tomorrow. All thrown off. Go Giants.
Go Giants. You know where they're going to go.
Go Rays.
Go Hillman.
No.